September 12, 1941, 08:30 hours. Imperial Japanese Navy Headquarters, Tokyo. Before we start, let me know in the comments from which country are you watching from. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sat across from Navy Minister Admiral Shigetaro Shimada in a windowless conference room. Between them lay a leather portfolio containing the operational plan for the attack on Pearl Harbor. Yamamoto had just finished presenting the tactical details. 6 aircraft carriers, 353 aircraft, dawn strike against the American Pacific Fleet. Shimada was enthusiastic. The plan was bold. It would cripple American naval power in a single morning. The war would be over before the Americans could respond effectively. Yamamoto did not share this enthusiasm. "If ordered to fight," Yamamoto stated, "I can guarantee to put up a tough fight for the first 6 months. But I have absolutely no confidence about what would happen if it went on for 2 or 3 years." Shimada dismissed the concern. One decisive blow at Pearl Harbor would force America to negotiate. Yamamoto continued. He had lived in America, studied at Harvard, served as naval attaché in Washington. He understood American industrial capacity in ways few Japanese officers did. The United States has 10 times Japan's industrial capacity. Their shipyards can produce warships faster than we can sink them. Once fully mobilized, America will bury us under avalanches of ships, aircraft, and weapons. He presented specific numbers. American steel production, 60 million tons annually. Japan, 6 million tons. American oil production, 180 million barrels per year. Japan produced almost none. American aircraft production capacity, over 50,000 planes per year once mobilized. Japan, perhaps 10,000. The mathematics were unavoidable. Japan could not win a prolonged war against the United States. The industrial disparity was too vast. Shimada's response was dismissive. Japanese forces were superior in training and fighting spirit. One sharp blow would break American will. Yamamoto knew this was wrong, but he also knew his duty. The meeting ended. Yamamoto walked out knowing that Japan had just committed to a war it could not win, and he was the man who would have to fight it. Yamamoto had opposed war with America from the beginning. In 1940, senior officers in the Imperial Japanese Army pushed for confrontation with the United States. They argued that American sanctions were intolerable, that war was inevitable and should be fought while Japan still held advantages. Yamamoto argued against this position repeatedly. His opposition was not based on pacifism. Yamamoto had fought in the Russo-Japanese War, losing 2 fingers at Tsushima in 1905. He understood combat. His opposition was based on mathematics. In a letter in early 1941, Yamamoto wrote, "To fight the United States is like fighting the whole world. But it has been decided, so I will do my best." Yamamoto was ordered to prepare a contingency plan for war with America. He knew that a defensive strategy would fail. Japan's only chance was to strike first, to destroy the Pacific Fleet before it could threaten Japanese operations, to buy 6 months of freedom to secure the resources Japan needed. The Pearl Harbor plan emerged from this strategic logic, not because it would win the war, but because it was the only way to delay inevitable defeat. Yamamoto personally oversaw its development through early 1941. He selected Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagamo to command the strike force. He chose the aircraft carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu, Shokaku, and Zukaku, the most powerful carrier force ever assembled. The plan was brilliant on a tactical level. Aircraft from 6 carriers would strike in 2 waves at dawn. Every officer who reviewed the plan praised its audacity. But Yamamoto saw beyond tactics to strategy. In September 1941, during a war game at the Naval Staff College, Yamamoto watched junior officers simulate the Pearl Harbor attack and the subsequent 6 months of operations. The simulation showed Japanese victories across the Pacific. The Philippines captured, Malaya seized, Singapore fallen. Then Yamamoto asked the simulation officers to continue the game. What happens in month 7, month 12, month 24? The officers ran the extended simulation over several days. The results were catastrophic for Japan. By month 18, American forces would have numerical superiority in every category. By month 24, the disparity would be overwhelming. Senior staff dismissed the findings as too pessimistic. They didn't account for Japanese fighting spirit. Yamamoto knew the simulations were correct. He had seen American factories. He understood what industrial capacity meant in modern war. But Japan had made its decision. War was coming whether he agreed or not. His duty was to execute the plan as effectively as possible, to give Japan its 6 months, to hope for a miracle he knew would not come.
December 7th, 1941, 0755 hours, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The first wave of Japanese aircraft struck exactly as planned. 183 aircraft fell upon the American Pacific Fleet. The attack achieved complete tactical surprise. At 0845 hours, the second wave attacked. 167 additional aircraft struck remaining targets. By 1000 hours, it was over. 8 American battleships damaged or destroyed. 188 American aircraft destroyed. 2,403 Americans killed. Japanese losses: 29 aircraft, 64 men killed. The attack was a tactical masterpiece. Back in Tokyo, the Naval General Staff celebrated. Yamamoto did not celebrate. When informed of the attack's success, his response was subdued. "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." This quote has been disputed by historians, but multiple sources confirm he expressed this sentiment. He understood that the attack, while tactically successful, was strategically catastrophic. The attack had failed to achieve several critical objectives. Most importantly, the 3 American aircraft carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Lexington, and USS Saratoga, were not at Pearl Harbor. They were at sea. They survived intact. Additionally, the American fuel storage facilities were not destroyed. The submarine base was not heavily damaged. Ship repair facilities remained operational. These failures meant Pearl Harbor remained functional, and the American carrier force, the most important naval asset for Pacific warfare, was untouched. But there was something even more consequential. The attack occurred before Japan's formal declaration of war reached Washington. Due to delays in decoding the diplomatic message, the declaration was delivered after the attack began. This made Pearl Harbor a sneak attack in American eyes. The political implications were enormous. Before December 7th, American public opinion was divided. Pearl Harbor unified American opinion instantly. On December 8th, Congress declared war on Japan with only one dissenting vote. The sleeping giant was not just awakened, it was enraged. This was exactly what Yamamoto had feared: total war against an enemy with overwhelming industrial capacity and now the political unity to use it without restraint. Yamamoto's 6-month window had begun. For 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Japanese forces advanced across the Pacific with stunning speed. The Philippines fell. Malaya and Singapore were captured. The Dutch East Indies were occupied. Burma fell. By March 1942, Japan controlled an area from India to the Central Pacific. The Naval General Staff was ecstatic. Every objective achieved ahead of schedule. Yamamoto did not share this euphoria. He tracked American production. In January 1942, American shipyards laid keels for 27 new warships, including 3 aircraft carriers. In February, 31 more. American aircraft production in the first quarter exceeded 10,000 planes. Training programs were processing over 100,000 pilots per year. This was not a defeated enemy seeking peace. This was total industrial mobilization. Yamamoto prepared for the next phase. He proposed an operation to seize Midway Island, 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii. Capturing Midway would extend Japan's defensive perimeter. More importantly, it would draw out the American carrier force for a decisive battle. The plan was approved. Yamamoto personally commanded from his flagship, the battleship Yamato. The plan was tactically sound, but it rested on a false assumption. Yamamoto assumed the Americans did not know the attack was coming.
June 4, 1942, 0430 hours, 200 miles northwest of Midway Island. Vice Admiral Nagumo commanded 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the same force that had struck Pearl Harbor. What Nagumo did not know, American cryptographers had broken Japanese naval codes. They knew Midway was the target. They knew the timing. Admiral Chester Nimitz had positioned 3 carriers northeast of Midway, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown. They waited in ambush. At 0430, Nagumo launched his first strike against Midway. At 7:15, his scout aircraft reported American ships. At 8:30, the American force included a carrier. Nagumo faced a critical decision. His aircraft were being rearmed for anti-ship attack, but aircraft from the Midway strike were returning, low on fuel. Flight decks were cluttered with aircraft and munitions. Nagumo ordered his aircraft to launch immediately while recovering the Midway strike. It was too late. At 10:20 hours, American dive bombers struck. In 5 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were destroyed. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu hit by multiple bombs. By evening, all 3 had sunk. Hiryu survived and launched a counterstrike that crippled USS Yorktown. But that afternoon, American aircraft destroyed Hiryu too. By June 7th, all 4 of Yamamoto's carriers were gone. The elite aircrews were dead. Yamamoto received the reports with silent comprehension. This was mathematical inevitability. The Americans had learned. Their code-breaking gave them decisive advantage. And most ominously, the American carriers at Midway were a fraction of America's total force. Shipyards were producing more. After Midway, Yamamoto recommended defensive operations. The Naval General Staff rejected this. Offensive operations would continue. The next 18 months proved him correct. In August 1942, American forces landed on Guadalcanal, a 6-month meat grinder. But the Americans kept coming. More ships, more aircraft, more troops. Japan lost carriers at Guadalcanal. The Americans lost Hornet and Wasp, but Americans replaced their losses within months. Japan could not. By late 1943, American forces advanced across the Central Pacific. American submarines strangled Japan's merchant fleet. American aircraft production in 1943, 85,000 planes. Japan, 16,000. American naval construction, 27 aircraft carriers. Japan, 3. The numbers Yamamoto presented in September 1941 were manifesting exactly as predicted. 10-to-1 industrial advantage.
mathematical inevitability playing out in steel and blood. April 18, 1943, 09:35 hours. Approaching Bougainville Island. Admiral Yamamoto traveled to inspect forward bases. His itinerary had been transmitted via encoded radio the previous day. American cryptographers had intercepted and decoded that message. They knew his schedule, his route. 18 P-38 Lightning fighters took off from Guadalcanal at 07:25. Their mission, intercept and shoot down Yamamoto's aircraft. At 09:35, the American fighters spotted 2 Japanese bombers and 6 Zero escorts. Captain Thomas Lanfear and Lieutenant Rex Barber engaged the bombers. Yamamoto's aircraft was hit multiple times. It crashed into the jungle. Yamamoto died instantly. He was 59 years old. The man who had planned Pearl Harbor, who had predicted Japan's defeat, who had tried to warn his government about the inevitable mathematics of total war, was killed by the very industrial capacity he had feared. The P-38 Lightnings were products of American mass production. The code-breaking enabled by American technology. Even Yamamoto's death illustrated his thesis. Japan could not win through superior tactics. America's advantages were too vast. After the war, historians found Yamamoto's pre-war assessments, his letters opposing war, his accurate predictions about the 6-month window and American industrial response. They also found how these warnings were received, dismissed as defeatism, ignored because they contradicted desired outcomes. American military analysts identified Yamamoto's pre-war assessment as one of the most accurate strategic predictions in military history. He had understood the mathematical realities. He had known Japan could not win a prolonged war.